Order. Now we would like to do the appointment of the chair and the vice chair. May I have nominations for the role of chair for the Hamilton Renewable Power, Inc. Board of Directors for the 2018-22 term, please? Brenda Johnson? Sorry, Councillor.
Councillor Danko. I nominate Councillor Danko for the chair because he knows how to work the board.
Councillor Danko, do you accept the nomination? All those in favor? And that carries. May I now have nominations for the role of vice chair of the Hamilton Renewable Power, Inc. Board of Directors for the 2018-22 term?
I suppose that means I have to nominate Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Johnson, do you accept the nomination? All those in favor?
All in favor? Carried.
And that carries. Congratulations. I will now pass the meeting over to our brand-new chair, Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Councillor Johnson? Yeah. Okay, electronic vote. Is it the two of us that vote?
Then it doesn't carry.
Thank you, that carries. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. Adoption of minutes. May I please have a motion to approve the July 30th, 2018 minutes as presented? That would be Councillor Johnson, and I wasn't here for that, so it doesn't matter, okay. Electronic vote, that carries 2-0. If only all meetings were like this, eh? Staff presentations. David Oak will be providing the presentation. Whatever's easiest.
So I'll start it off, sure. So my name's Tom Chessman, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Hamilton Renewable Power. And I thought I would, if you want to follow on the paper copy in front of you, you could certainly, is there a clicker from here? Should we do it from the podium? Yeah. So I'll just go over a couple of slides on the operational update. David Oak will manage the financial update, and then I've got a couple of more slides at the end to talk about proposals. Just a quick summary of the structure of the City of Hamilton as shareholder, the board, and the corporate officers for the organization. In terms of the production from Q1 and Q2 of this year compared to the same period last year, indicated on this slide, our production did dip down in 2018, primarily due to the painting of the sphere at Woodward. But we did, I will point out that our Q2 production in 2019 was the second highest output since 2015. So the operations have been running fairly smoothly, except for when we have had these interruptions like the sphere, as I indicated earlier. In terms of kilowatt hours, similar information is presented here, but in terms of kilowatt hour update of year over year, for the same period, May saw some unplanned downtime due to Hydro One outage requests. When they're doing maintenance, we have to shut off our Woodward generator as well. And July saw some planned maintenance for our one of the generators at Glanbrook. But overall, we are on track. Some other activities. At Glanbrook, we did sign our operations and maintenance agreement with Toromont, which is renewed for another 5 years. And we have very recently finalized a communications agreement with HCE Telecom, which will help mitigate some communication costs that we would otherwise be incurring. So some cost savings there, which is great. That particular agreement covers off the Woodward location and our connection to the Hydro One Beach TS, transmission station. And I'll pass this along to David.
You're on, David.
Okay. This financial update will address the 2018 fiscal performance, present a high-level summary of the 2019 operating budget, and provide a profitability projection to the end of the year based on year-to-date operating results. Similar to past years, an historical recap of some of the key financial indicators will also be included. Oh, the arrow, that one? Oh, okay, sorry, okay, got it. There were 2 external audits pertaining to 2018. KPM audited the 2018 accounting records and requested no adjustments or restatements. The auditor's report is included in the draft financial statements, which are not final to approve by the board. A second audit was undertaken by the Canada Revenue Agency that covered all GST, HST transactions for the period July 2014 to May 2018. As a result of this audit, the CRA disallowed input tax credits totaling $470,000 that had been previously claimed for methane gas and insurance. Hamilton Renewable Power is required to make a monthly remittance to the CRA for GST, HST collected and is entitled to 100% refund on the payment of these taxes. This refund is referred to as an input tax credit. The CRA made a determination that Hamilton Renewable Power was a paramunicipal organization given it is owned and controlled by the city, and as a consequence ruled that the methane gas purchases from the city are GST, HST exempt. This ruling had no financial impact as all the ineligible input tax credits were offset by a rebate claim that was submitted to the CRA. The 2 input tax credits for insurance were also disallowed as the taxes paid included only the PST portion. The disallowed insurance input tax credits were refunded to the CRA with interest costs added, but those insurance input tax credits only amounted to about $5,400.
Want to ask a question now or wait till the end? Let's wait till the end.
Highlighted in this slide are some noteworthy facts on last year's financial performance. 2018 net income after taxes totaled close to $134,000, which was a slight improvement from 2017. The Woodward Cogen was not operational for the first 3.5 months of 2018 due to the painting and other rehab work being done on the gas spear, which had a negative impact on net earnings in the amount of $64,000. This shutdown lasted 6.5 months, going back to October 2017. Payments issued to the city totaled slightly over $1.7 million, with methane gas purchases and debt payments being the 2 largest items. 2 debt payments were issued to the city in 2018, which reduced the outstanding principal loan balance by $500,000. Depicted in this slide is the actual revenues earned in 2018, which totaled a little over $3 million. As you can see here, Hamilton Renewable Power has only 3 revenue sources. Electricity generation proceeds from Hydro One and the independent electricity system operator made up 92% of all revenues. Thermal energy produced by the Woodward Cogen is sold to the city to run various processes and for spacing at the wastewater treatment plant. Repairs and maintenance of the generating equipment which would include periodic engine overhauls and other preventive maintenance and servicing, is the main cost driver, totaling approximately $1.1 million and representing 54% of all expenses in 2018. Depreciation is a non-cash expense and consisting of the straight-line amortization of the generating equipment, pipelines, buildings, and grid connections. Payments to the city for accounting, legal, and administrative support make up the majority of the professional fees expenses, totaling $237,000, with the remaining $38,000 comprised of auditing and consulting services paid to KPMG. The majority of the other expenses are pretty self-explanatory. The finance charges, that represents the interest costs on the long-term debt. And miscellaneous would have included bank charges, utility costs, ground maintenance costs, small items that were paid throughout the year. Pictured in this slide is a summary of the 2018 actual revenues and expenses compared to budget. For 2018, a budgeted loss of $65,000 was anticipated due to the Woodward Cogen shut down for the first quarter of the year. However, as you can see, net profit came in just under $134,000, resulting in a $198,000 favorable variance for the year. This favorable year-end variance is mainly attributable to improved production rates at the Glanbrook site, translating into higher than expected electricity generation revenues. Expenses were also under budget by approximately $40,000, primarily due to reduced engine maintenance costs attributable to the delayed startup of the Woodward Cogen. The acronym PILS stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. PILS are an expense to the bottom line, consisting of current taxes on net income earned less a deferred PIL liability write-down. The unfavorable variance of $84,000 in PILs is the result of no taxable income being budgeted for the year. Subject to board approval, 80% of the 2018 net earnings, totaling $106,970, will be distributed to the city in the form of a dividend. The city portion will be applied to 3 city reserves in the amount shown, with the remaining 20% retained by Hamilton Renewable Power. The financial position of Herpy as at December 31st, 2018 is illustrated by this slide. From an accounting perspective, the net worth of the company is $5.7 million, as shown under the equity line. The equity amount is composed of 600,000 common shares valued at $10 each that are held by the city, less a reported deficit in the retained earnings account. Shown here is a detailed breakdown of the assets and liabilities that were summarized on the previous balance sheet slide. Current assets total $850,000 and is mainly comprised of cash and accounts receivables. Fixed assets include a $32,000 security deposit, which was paid in 2004 when the renewable power energy supply contract was signed. This fixed asset section also includes the carrying value of the generating equipment and related infrastructure, which is valued at $6.2 million. These assets have been depreciated by 52% from their original purchase cost of $12.9 million. The $995,000 current liabilities is comprised of vendor payables, taxes owed to other levels of government, and 2019 principal debt owed to the city. The deferred PILs provision under the non-current liabilities is a temporary difference between the tax bases of assets and liabilities and their respective carrying amounts for accounting purposes. For tax purposes, capital cost allowance rates are used to determine the taxable income. For accounting purposes, we use straight line amortization to depreciate the assets. In this slide, you will see a 2018 net benefit realized by the city, which came in slightly under budget. With the exception of the opportunity cost line, all of the amounts in this slide represent payments issued by Hamilton Renewable Power, which were recorded in the city books as either operating or revenue or a reserve contribution. The 18,000 unfavorable variance, which is from the city's point of view, is mainly due to less revenue received for methane due to the Woodward Cogen shutdown that resulted in less gas consumption by Hamilton Renewable Power. The opportunity cost line is an estimated calculation that assumes that the city could have earned a 3% return on monies loaned to Hamilton Renewable Power, therefore constituting a negative net benefit. Outlined in this slide is a high-level summary of the 2019 budgeted revenues and expenses. For this year, a net profit of $140,000 has been budgeted, which should translate into a net cash flow of $468,000. The 2019 budgeted net income is a small improvement over the actual earnings achieved in 2017 and 2018, and is on the conservative side in terms of expected production rates and uptime percentages. It is anticipated that the 2019 HERPE operations will generate close to $1.2 million in savings to the city taxpayers based on the proposed budget. This 2019 budgeted net benefit is about $54,000 higher than what was realized in 2018, primarily due to increased methane gas payments that are attributable to the Woodward Cogen being operational for the whole year. This slide highlights the 2019 year-to-date operating results for the reporting period ending on June 30th. Net profit realized for the first 6 months of 2019 totals $132,000, approximately $132,000, almost matching the profitability level for all of 2018. As was the case last year, electricity-generated revenues earned from the Glanbrook site have surpassed expectations, as the uptime percentage and production rates have exceeded the budget forecast to date. We had budgeted an uptime rate of about 94.6%, and it's actually coming in higher at about 97.5%, which has resulted in a $65,000 favorable budget variance in revenues for Glanbrook. Conversely, though, the Woodward Cogen has been underperforming from a revenue standpoint, which is about $27,000 below budget due to significant downtime totaling 600 hours in April and May on account of hydro outages. The uptime rate for Woodward Cogen was budgeted at 95.7%, and it's coming in at this point in time 82.2%. Repair and maintenance costs have been running on the favorable side for both Woodward and Cogen, for Woodward and the Glanbrook sites. These costs can be highly variable and unexpected, so it remains to be seen whether this favorable trend continues. At this point in time, a net profit of $258,000 is being projected by year, and which is substantially above the budget by approximately $118,000. There has been a consistent trend where actual Glanbrook revenues have exceeded the monthly budget allocation, so it has been assumed that this pattern will continue for the rest of the year. The favorable year-end variance of $49,000 is basically a simple extrapolation of the year-to-date balances to December 31st. On the expense side of the ledger, an $81,000 favorable year-end budget variance is being forecasted. Some costs are known or can be accurately projected based on historical spending such as professional fees, insurance, communication, and finance charges. Other expenses such as repair and maintenance and depreciation have much more volatility, making it harder to forecast as they are actually directly linked to engine hours or unexpected events. These types of expenses make up 84% of all costs, totaling $1.8 million, therefore pose the greatest risk to the forecast not coming to fruition. The forecast methodology used for these variable expenses includes a combination of current trends and past costs. Should the $258,000 forecast come to pass, it would result in a city dividend of $207,000 in 2020. I added this slide to the deck to emphasize the significant increase in cash flow that will be realized in 2019. This cash flow increase is due to reduced debt payments in 2009 compared to the previous 2 years, and to a lesser extent, the higher projected operating income this year. For example, the debt payments to the city in 2018 totaled $575,000, which was reduced to $288,000 in 2019, resulting in a cash flow savings of $287,000. An additional cash flow savings of $287,000 will occur in 2020 over the 2019 number, assuming no new financing costs are added. These cash flow numbers here are based on operating and financing activities and will be before any city dividend payout. So basically, in 2020, you could add another close to $300,000 to that forecast, $585,000 for 2019. This slide highlights the net income earned over the last 13 years from the start of commercial operations. The Woodward and Glanbrook facilities commenced operations in 2006 and 2008 respectively, which accounts for the net loss reported in those years. Both facilities started operations in the month of June, which limited the amount of revenue that could be earned in the first year. From the year 2009 to 2017, operating expenses have remained relatively steady, ranging from $2.1 to $2.3 million. The decline in net income during this period is due to lower revenues, which dropped from a high of $4.4 million in 2009 to $3 million in 2018, a $1.4 million or 32% decrease. However, this net income decline appears to have bottomed out in 2015, as the last 3 years have reported year-over-year increases. Another substantial increase in net income is expected in 2019, which is forecasted to be in the neighborhood of $250,000. Repair and maintenance costs represent the largest expense item. As I previously stated, represents about 54% of all of the total expenses. The cost to operate and maintain the generating equipment is captured under this expense line and will include routine maintenance and unexpected repairs and servicing of the engines. It consists solely of contractual payments issued to Toromont and Hamilton Community Energy. As you can see from the chart, an upward cost trend is clearly evident from 2006 to 2014, which is understandable as the equipment ages. Repair and maintenance costs have remained relatively steady from 2015 to 2018, ranging slightly above or below $1.2 million. Since commercial operations began in 2006, Hamilton Renewable Power has provided the city with a cumulative net benefit of $17.5 million. The city net benefit since the year 2010 has been trending downwards, however, due to declining loan interest and dividend payouts. Despite the downward trend, the annual savings to taxpayers continues to exceed $1 million per year. At the end of 2018, the outstanding capital loans from the city totaled $278,000. Hamilton Renewable Power initially borrowed $6.4 million from the city in the form of 2 capital loans to be paid back semi-annually over 10 years at an annual interest rate of 6.75%. These loans were used to finance the construction of the Woodward Cogen and the Glanbrook generating facilities. This capital loan balance is now fully paid off, with the last loan payment issued to the city in June of this year. By the end of 2018, close to $3.7 million in dividends have been paid to the city. The HERPI dividend policy identifies two types of dividend payouts. Regular dividends represent a targeted payment each year consisting of 80% of the annual net earnings from the previous year audited statements. Special dividends are periodic payments that are made from excess retained earnings not required to maintain positive cash flow. You will notice that in 2010, a special dividend payment of $500,000 was issued to the city in addition to the regular dividend in that year. With an expected dividend payment of $106,970 in 2019, the trend is definitely moving in the right direction towards higher payouts. The 2018 audited financial statements and 2019 operating budget are considered draft until approved by the board. A dividend declaration is required before a payment can be issued to the city. Unlike past years where the dividend was paid in 2 installments, it is recommended that the single payment be issued by December 1st, primarily due to the timing of the board approval. And I think that's about the end of the financial update. That said, I guess I'll pass it over to Tom, who can talk about, fill you in on some potential development.
Thank you, David. Rome, did you want to offer comment on the financials, and then we'll have questions?
Through the chair, that's what I was going to request, that if it's the will of the directors, let's field questions on the operation and the finance, and then after that's done, we'll go into the proposals that Tom can present.
Okay. So questions on the financials. Councillor Johnson?
Thank you. First of all, the globe looks much better, folks. Thank you very much for doing that. I think it's a little bit of a gateway into our city, and I think that just having it all freshened up looks a lot better. I'm also glad that we have that agreement with Toromont renewed. I understand a few years ago when there was a big push to not renew the contract over another factory somewhere else down the road, and it turned out that Toromont had all the equipment that we needed, and it would have been horrible if we didn't renew that. So I guess my questions evolve around where did it go? So through you, Chair, to Dave, if you can go back to slide 9. So on slide 9, the audit findings, right at the very end, disallowed input tax credit for methane gas and insurance. I don't know if you were around at the time when this corporation was created, and it was before my time, but I always thought the corporation was created to gain access to these tax benefits. Now I'm hearing we're not getting these tax benefits, so is the corporation still needed if we're not getting the benefits?
Well, what's happened here is we bill the City of Hamilton, or the City of Hamilton bills Hamilton Renewable Power for the consumption of the methane gas, right. And those billings include HST. So we've been paying the city the methane gas cost plus the HST, and when we make those payments, we were requesting an input tax credit for making those payments because they're 100% refunded, right? So on the city side, they would be recording that as GST collected and remitting those HST payments to the CRA. So basically, the CRA is not out of any funds, and Hamilton Renewable Power is not out anything either because we don't record the taxes as an expense. So there's really no financial impact at all for disallowing these input tax credits because if we were basically paying them and deducting them from our HST claims. We've been doing that since day one of this corporation where the methane gas purchases, we were paying the HST. So there's really no financial impact at all to Hamilton Renewable Power here for disallowing these input tax credits. I don't know if I properly explained it to you.
And maybe it's a little bit over my head, and I'll admit that right off the get-go. But it was always my understanding is the reason that we have this corporation in the first place was that would sort of separate ourselves from the city of Hamilton. It would be a corporation within the city, but it's still separated.
Right.
And they created that corporation so that we could gain these tax benefits. We could gain the things that all the other corporations, and I believe this is a nonprofit corporation, correct? Does anybody know what the terms are?
I'm not sure what the...
So I guess my question, folks, is we've always wondered, now that the debt was getting paid off, whether or not the corporation was still needed. Now I'm finding that we don't have the tax benefits that also were associated with being a corporation. So maybe for the next meeting, and maybe not now, I don't want to blindside you, that we could just put together why the corporation's still needed. That would really be helpful for me, because if this is like any other amenity that the city looks after, then this would obviously go under Public Works, and then it would just fall under that agenda, and away we go. If we still have benefits from this being a corporation, I'm all over it. So I just want to understand what those benefits would be. So not to put you on the spot, David, but I just,
Yeah,
we can do
there's
that
really no
later.
benefit, like, when we pay HST,
Yes.
okay, it's an...
Who's we now? Okay, this is
Okay,
where,
Hamilton Renewable Power pays
Okay.
the HST. It's a
Okay.
cash outflow, but we recover that cash outflow by deducting it from our HST claims made to the CRA. So we're not paying the HST, we're not having the need to recover that cost.
okay,
So that's why the input tax credits are now being disallowed, because we're not going to be actually paying the HST on the city invoices for
Okay.
methane gas. So there's really, it's an in and out type of thing.
okay. So
there's
does the city of
no-
Hamilton pay the HST?
Well, the city of Hamilton, the city of Hamilton would be collecting the HST, but then they would be turning around and remitting it to the CRA. So it's a zero impact on both the city and Hamilton Renewable Power.
I heard 470,000, then my brain shut off after that.
Yeah, so basically, if we pay HST, we're going to turn around and deduct it from our HST claims. So there's zero impact to Hamilton Renewable Power. And on the city side, if they collect the HST from Hamilton Renewable Power, they're going to turn around and remit that HST back to the CRA as part of their monthly HST claim that they have to file.
Okay.
Tom and Rome want to jump in here as well. Who's first? Tom?
This is kind of silly. There's 5 of us in the room, and I can't see 2 of them.
You on, Tom?
Can we do room 192 next time, please?
Rated, yeah.
Yeah.
Check. Hello? There we go. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on a couple quick things. One of the board meetings we had last year, we did have a financial review done, and I would, when we get back to you on our next meeting, I can kind of refer to the information that was presented at that meeting that talked about some of the questions that you raised, Councillor. And the other thing I wanted to add is when the organization was first formed, it was before the Green Energy Act was in play, and the city wasn't allowed to be an electricity generator. So it was set up strategically for a couple of different reasons. That was another reason that it was set up as a private company. So I just wanted to add some more context to that.
You want to? Rome, did you want to add to that?
Through the chair? Okay, great. Yeah, just to Tom's point, last year I remember the mayor requesting that we look at Hamilton Renewable Power to see is it time to divest itself and bring it in-house or sell it off to Hamilton Community Energy, or is there another entity out there that would purchase that? So we did a review with KPMG, and we're prepared to bring KPMG back if you wish to do that presentation again. But the option was to keep it the way it is, status quo. But at the request of the chair, we could bring that presentation back. So,
Go
Thank you. And I don't want to add extra work, and I'm sorry for that. It's just that when I heard about this, and that just sort of triggered it off. And as Dave tried to explain to me, what goes in, goes out, it's just not doing that anymore, and it's no loss to either side. But again, I always thought that the tax benefit was, creating this corporation was to also include these tax benefits, that this in and out thing isn't going to happen anymore. So maybe not a fulsome discussion on that, but it might help some of the people, like I don't believe Councillor Whitehead's been on this group for a while. It just may be a Cole's notes, is that this is still beneficial to us. And the tax benefits, as Dave said earlier, that no longer apply, there's still more that can apply. So I didn't know if KPMG's, and I don't recall their presentation including this section. And if it didn't, it's probably because it was an in and out. I don't know. So I'm just asking. Thanks. So the last one, I think that was it for questions, Chair. Thank you very much for some latitude there.
Okay, so we'll move on to the proposals, and who's presenting the remainder? Tom? Go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I've got two proposals that I'd like to go over and seek direction from the board. The first relates to algae, and it also relates to why there are Smarties around the table today. So there's good algae and there's bad algae. When I first heard about algae as an opportunity, my mind went to algae blooms in Lake Erie and algae the bad. In fact, the blue Smarties are the dye that's used in that food product comes from algae. So that's my prop for today. The point is there is quite a growing market for food products that are based on algae, that are animal food related, and the pharmaceutical market as well. So what's the link? Why are we talking about this today? Well, we've been asked over the last number of years to look at other possible uses of the energy that's produced, in particular out at Glanbrook, because those are engines that are running continuously. They're well-maintained assets, and they have emissions, and they have heat that's available. And so the potential to use that heat and use the emissions to lower our emissions are certainly viable, and to continue the use of these well-maintained assets. Because there is a risk at the end of our power purchase agreement in 2027 that there will no longer be an offer to supply electricity to the grid. So if that's not there, we've got these well-maintained assets, and it's a bit of a concern, what are we going to do with those assets? So we have been looking at different options over the last couple of years, and I started looking at this particular option and what's going on in the market. And again, the assets, the emission profile that we have, the heat, are all items that would fit well with this potential opportunity. So the interest today, again, is to seek your approval to initiate a study. I'd like to get funding to do that from external parties where possible, and look at the potential of using the CO2 from the emissions, the heat from the engines, and a light that comes from this system that is available through a Canadian company. This Canadian company has an operational site at St. Mary's Cement. It was created and established in 2015. They worked with the National Research Council to develop that site. And so I visited that site, and I also visited the Markham District Energy site, which has the same technology installed. They are finishing off their pilot phase and moving to full production in Markham. So there is potentially a revenue stream obviously tied to this. And again, the intent is to validate what the technical issues may be, what the financial risks may be, and come back to the board with a proper proposal as to really what this opportunity may look like. So one of the options, maybe we don't pursue this, but, you know, what are the details and what are the ramifications and what are the opportunities? So this is at the St. Mary's Cement Plant. The founder, one of the founders of the company is on the picture on the left, and he's standing beside a curved vessel with a bunch of hoses coming out of it, you can see there. And that's the primary algae production vessel that's located, again, at that St. Mary's Cement location. And you'll see the smaller vessels on the right, and you'll notice there's a red tinge near the top of them. And the reason for that is the light that's shining into these vessels is coming down through these tubes. They go right down into the bottom of the tank, and that's what makes this process a little unique. Normally where you're growing algae, it's on an open pond, and you have to flood a large area. And again, what does algae need? It needs light, it needs CO2, and it needs heat. So as the algae grows, it gets thicker and thicker on the surface of the water, and ultimately it starts blocking the very light that it needs to grow in that pond. So taking that and putting the light down throughout the entire vessel is something that's a little unique with this particular company. And that large vessel that's, again, on the left-hand photograph, that apparently can grow as much algae as a pond the size of a football field. So it makes it very efficient. It is a lab, basically a high-quality algae production. There's no external, any sort of issues with air quality or anything getting into the algae that would be found in an external pond. So you have very high-quality algae, and after it's harvested, it's dried and packaged and taken to market. So again, that's a quick summary of why we might want to look at algae, of all things, and why it's an interesting opportunity for this particular site that we've been looking for, extending the operation of the landfill, which is active landfill and will continue to be so for quite a few years. So that is the algae proposal.
Right, just, do you want to do
pause there?
questions on that now? Yeah. So I have Councillor Johnson.
I don't see a price. How much you said you just wanted to take some money and look at the study? What are we talking?
I've been trying to get, find people that are able to provide us with a price for a feasibility study. Most of the people I'm talking to have all worked with this company and don't have that arm's length. But I have pursued the funding opportunity, and I'm waiting to hear whether FCM is available to fund 50% of the study. But I don't have a price for you today, so either you could potentially give us approval to come back to you with a price and what that feasibility study might cost, or pursue it with some other conditions that you feel would be appropriate. But I don't know whether it's going to be 10,000 or 50,000 or 150,000 at this point.
Okay, so it's just really spitballing right now then, right? We're not looking at anything definite right now?
I didn't want to proceed with this until you heard it and you felt that it was worth pursuing, and I'd be happy to come back to the board with a more detailed cost and plan to implement a feasibility study if that's what you choose to do.
Well, just, again, I'll start spitballing. If we had approved an upset limit of a certain amount, and then that way if you needed more, then you would have to come back to the board and explain why. Would that be reasonable?
Think so?
Yeah, so I heard 10,000, 50,000, 150.
Oh,
What would stop you from coming to the board? If we put an upset limit down, then you wouldn't have to come back here. And I'm not talking about the 150. I know what you were saying about that.
Through the chair, if we use our procurement policies within the city of Hamilton, up to 100,000, that's through an RFQ process. Anything as an upset limit, anything beyond that, we would come back here.
Okay, I would be prepared to move it at that time, that within our own policy, if it's above our own policy over the 100,000, then you are prepared to come back here. Thank you.
So question for the clerk then. We'll receive the presentation and then we'll move that. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. That sounds like a great idea. There is one other proposal. This relates to solar, putting solar panels on the roof of a couple of arenas. These two arenas were targeted to be implemented by our previous arrangement with the utility. The feed-in tariff program got canceled before they could develop these projects, and so those have had some preliminary work in terms of assessing the weight, whether the weight could be accommodated on these two particular sites. That was provided through that process, and I'm seeking a similar approval as to whether Herpy would be interested in pursuing through, again, some sort of arrangement with the city to cost share or come up with a financial model that would be a benefit for both the city and Hamilton Renewable Power. But I wanted to bring that in front of the board again for developing a similar feasibility study and to come back to the board.
Is the proposal to, similar question, I guess, is it to hire an outside consultant? And what would the upset limit be?
Through the chair, I would recommend that both of these proposals go under the $100,000. And if we need additional funds, we would come back here.
Okay, and I have to pass the chair over if I have a question to the vice chair. So I'll do that. Both of the finance for both of these, would this be through Hamilton Renewable Power Inc.? So it'd be from your off the books for HRPI. Let's not call it Herpy.
The proposal would be that Hamilton Renewable Power would pay for this.
Okay, I'll take the chair back. And so we'll receive the motion to receive the presentation. So Councillor Johnson, show of hands, all in favor? Carried. Any opposed? No. Okay, so we have two motions on the table then in terms of what we just discussed on the proposals, or are we going to combine them into one?
So far, I've got that staff have approval to develop and assess business case and consider options, joint venture, long-term fixed price contract on CO2. That's what I've got down here because that's what you were seeking for approval. That the study be funded up to $100,000 and be funded from, this is the reserves, so you'll fill in the blanks later. Dave Moneyman, just reserves?
In fact, our retained earnings account is in a deficit position, but there's sufficient cash in the bank to cover it. And based on our cash flow, we'll be able to finance $100,000.
Somebody keeps popping me up. There we go. So how do you want this worded through you, Chair? Where would it be funded from? What would be the professional, make me look good name on this?
Through our operating budget, that'd be funded through the operating budget of
Thank you.
Renewable Power for 2019.
2019. Okay, so that's moved by myself, seconded by you, Mr. Chair, and that's the first one.
First one, let's vote on that. All in favor?
We got to go back to 192, or 192. This is silly. And I think I need another one,
Carried.
another move, don't I, another motion?
Yes, the second motion would be,
To explore financial options and generate detailed proposal on solar rooftop PV systems, exploring them through the city, correct? So I'll
with the
write
same
all that
financial.
down in a minute. And then was there an upset? I wasn't listening, sorry, I was writing this.
yeah,
Same
same as
upset
that
limit?
one, upset limit of 100,000, I believe, same account, correct?
from operating budget 2019. All those in favor?
All in favor?
Can I have another motion, please? Let's do that again. This one here to come back. And report. Okay. So those are to my two motions, and I think the other one was another motion. Are you ready to prepare for that?
If you've got those written out, we can proceed with the remainder of the motions. There's one, two,
It was just that the staff to report back on the HRPI Board of Directors on the benefits of the HRPI to the city, the corporation of the HRPI to the city.
sorry, is this a separate?
Yes.
Which?
Oh,
I
we,
have- In my roadmap here, I have. It's one off the floor, it's about staff direction. Oh. Okay. So, all in favor? Carried. Are we moving back to the roadmap then?
sorry about that.
Problem. Well, you're going to be moving all of these as well. There's five other motions on the table, correct? Madam Clerk? Yep. So the first one, and am I okay with the personnel? We're doing that? 6.1?
Yes.
Am I reading that out, or, okay.
Yes, please.
So the motion is that the corporation has approved the termination of the following person effective as of March 1st, 2019. Frank Gazzola, Vice President, and be further resolved that the corporation has received and accepted a written resignation hereto attached as Schedule 1 from the following individual effective immediately: Janet Pilon, Secretary. And be it further resolved that the following person is appointed to hold the office set opposite her name with all rights and obligations associated therewith until such time as said person resigns or is replaced by the board. Andrea Holland, Secretary. So moved by Councillor Johnson, second by myself. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. So same process for the rest. 6.2, audited financial statements. It's resolved that the audited financial statements for the 2018 fiscal year, a copy of which is attached hereto as Schedule 1, be approved. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by myself. Electronic vote. Thank you. Item 6.3, 2019 budget. Be it resolved that the 2019 budget, a copy of which is attached hereto as Schedule 2, be approved and adopted. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by myself. Electronic vote. Thank you. Carried. Item 6.4, declaration of dividend. It's resolved that in accordance with the dividend policy, a regular dividend of $106,970 be declared for 2019 based on 80% of annual net earnings as reported on the 2018 audited financial statements. Be it further resolved that the regular dividend be distributed in one payment of $106,970 to the shareholder. And be it further resolved that the dividend payment be made no later than December 1st, 2019. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by myself. All in favor? Thank you. And item 6.5, confirmatory actions. It's resolved that the officers of the corporation are, and each acting alone, is hereby authorized to do and perform any and all such acts, including execution of any and all documents and certificates as such officers may deem necessary or advisable, to to carry out the purposes and intent of the foregoing resolutions. Be it further resolved that any actions taken by such officers prior to the date of the foregoing resolutions adopted hereby that are within the authority conferred thereby are hereby ratified, confirmed, and approved as the acts and deeds of the corporation. The foregoing resolutions are hereby consented to all by the directors of the corporation pursuant to the Business Corporations Act, Ontario, RSO 1990, CB 16, as evident by such directors' signatories hereto. And I think that was written by legal. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by myself. All in favor? Thank you. And if there's no other business, I have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Johnson, seconded by myself. Carried. Thank you.